Hello, I am here today to show you how to take a data set and turn it into a visual graph. It will show you the importance of having both the numerical data set as well as the graph to reference to help us see and recognize different pieces of information. Here's our data set of hand data from the class that I am currently taking that shows the lengths of each finger on the left hand of classmates. And we're going to use this data to compare the finger lengths between males and females, and also specifically the index finger and the ring finger, as they are often stated that can be correlated with the level of testosterone. Well, we will examine that further as we play with our data. First step, highlight all the information that you want, and either press Control-C or right-click Copy, and then open up an Excel account. In Excel then, you're going to go Control-V or right-click Paste, and you will have your information pasted into Excel for you. Now, it's all jumbled up between male and female, and it's much more helpful if I'm going to be comparing the data if the male and female information is grouped together. So then I am going to go to my data up top and choose the word sort. First, I'm going to click in the first column under gender because I want it to sort according to gender. So then I will click sort by, down arrow, gender, order A to Z, and say OK. And now if I look, all of my female information is grouped together and all of my male information is grouped together. So ta-da, I have that part figured out. Now I want my male and female averages, the lengths of their fingers, to be averaged so we can have those numbers to compare. So first we'll do my female average. I'll press Control-B to bold this information. And then I will come over here. And in order to do the female average only, I'm first going to just type in here equal sign, because that tells Excel that I'm ready for it to do a formula. And either you can go up to this formula symbol and you can choose average, or you can type in the word average. That is up to you. But if you wanted to do average, that is definitely an option. So average, parentheses, and then you need to go and you need to figure out, okay, these are all the female boxes. So if you highlight all the female boxes and then say end parentheses and enter, your average is there. Now we know we're going to be turning this into a graph, so we do not need all of those decimal points. And in a moment I'll show you how we can shorten those. But first let's finish figuring the averages for all the females. Since we've already put that formula in once, we can simply click on the corner of that box and drag it over to all of the columns, and it will find the average for all of the finger lengths without having to put the formula in multiple times. Now, if you notice, as I do, there seems to be something odd here. I don't think the finger lengths are 13 centimeters, especially since most of these are 6 and 7. Seeing that there is an issue with my data, I need to find the error, and ta-da! Here it is. The decimal point is missing from these pieces of data. So I'm going to go in and put these decimal points in. And I know, as a student, I would have been like, oh man, I have to do everything all over again. But not with the Excel program. Because you've already put in the formula, it automatically fixes the error once you do. And so now that I have inserted my decimal points, you can see that the averages have been reconfigured. Now it's time to do the same thing for the male average. So we'll come here, and this time, again, we're going to type it equals average, parentheses, but this time we're only going to highlight the male squares. Seems logical enough. And parentheses and enter. And there we go. We have our male average. Remember that lovely trick? Click and drag over, and we'll have all of the averages for the lengths of fingers among the females and the males. Now, since I said we would be comparing this specific data, this is the specific data that I want to highlight before I go to make a graph. So I will highlight this information. Oh, and I have an extra box, so I want to start again. I will try again to highlight just the information I'm looking for, and I will say insert column graph. I would like for my column graph to be a 3D cylinder column. And here is our graph. As you can see, the female average and the male average are present. However, if I were to turn in this graph to myself, I know I would not receive a very strong grade because I'm missing some very important things. Labels as to what I'm looking at, and a heading for my graph. Also, it's not typical for us to see blue females and red males, so I will show you how to go about changing those colors. First and foremost, however, I would like these numbers to actually be titled as to what they're representing. So I will click on those numbers and then right click and say select data. In the select data table, I will click edit for the horizontal axis labels. Once I click that, it says axis label ranges. I can scroll to the information I would like it to be, which is information from D through H, thumb, index, middle, ring, and pinky. Once I have all of those highlighted, I will say OK. I can see that my numbers have changed to that information, and I can press OK. Now when I look back at my graph, these columns actually represent something. Next thing that I would like to change is to actually have labels for my graph. In order to do that, I will go up to Layout, and I will choose Data Labels. If I want my information to actually show on the top of the graphs, I will say Show, turn on Data Labels. And now I actually have the numbers that I wanted to have. And as you can see, the decimals go on for a long ways. And I will show you again how we can go back to our table and change that. Also, if I'd like to have axis titles, I choose which axis I would like to do and title that. So below here, I might say appendage on left hand, because that's where all of the data came from. Then I will come back to my axis title and I will do my vertical axis, and I'll choose a rotated title, and this is going to be length, and we all measure the length of our fingers in centimeters, which of course I will put in parentheses. My chart title, I'll come up here and I want it to be above my chart, and I will say finger length, male versus female. You know, you can get as creative as you'd like with your titles, but they need to make sure they're telling your viewer what they're seeing. Lastly, if I wanted to change the colors of my data, I can click on that information and then right click and say Format Data Series. So once in Format Data Series, you want to go to Fill, and it currently is on automatic. I don't want that, so I'm going to say Solid Fill and choose my color. For males, I will choose more of the typical blue, but I'll keep it nice and light. We can see that there's still a difference there, and I can X it out. Now I'm going to right click on my female and say Format Data Series here. And again, Fill, Solid Fill. This time my female color, we're going to go with a pale red. That'll work. Okay, and so now we have our reds and our blues, and we have our graph. Now, as I stated, we don't want all of those decimal points. It makes our graph really easy to read. So you can just click and drag your graph out of the way, and actually we'll move that to a new page here shortly. But first, I want to show you how we can manipulate our numbers on here. So if we highlight all of our numbers that we have, then we can come up here and we can choose decrease decimal. Since we don't want all of these decimals, I would say to the nearest tenth is wonderful. And so we will decrease our decimal to the nearest tenth. So here again is our data table or our data set, and this is our graph. Now to move this graph to its own page, we will right click, copy, and then right click and paste our graph. Again, you can do Control C and Control V. You can make your graph as large or as small as you'd like, and it just gives a wonderful visual to show the lengths of the thumb, index, middle, ring, and pinky fingers. which is a wonderful comparison because they state that the index finger and the ring finger have a very interesting correlation. They believe that the closer the index finger and ring finger are to the same length, the less testosterone there is. The further apart there are, in other words, if the ring finger is significantly longer than the index finger, the more testosterone there is, because males typically have a longer ring finger than they do index finger, and females typically have one that is very close in size. And as you can see, our data slightly supports this. There is 2/10 of a difference between the female's index and ring finger, and 3/10 of a difference between the male's index and ring finger. We would need to collect many more samples to see if we could further support this correlation. However, they also state that if females are very close to have a further separation between their index and ring fingers, such as males are expected to, that they just simply have a higher testosterone level. So this theory has gone on for quite a while, and there are many studies to support this. That is something that you can use your time to further research.